So Mercenaries has been out for about a week now, and I recently hit top 63 on the North American leaderboard, and I thought I would basically tell you what mercenaries that you should have ready to go for a multitude of compositions, right? There are some mercenaries that I believe are just so good to fit into anything. They win games on their own. They are very, very strong, and I feel like they're going to be very strong until either another mercenary gets released, or someone finds the counter for it, but it might be really hard to find the counters for these. So rather than grinding on these random mercenaries, maybe it'll be useful for some of you to just grind these really good mercenaries to make sure that you have them in your arsenal. If this is helpful for you and you want to see more mercenaries content, make sure you subscribe. I want to be your mercenaries guy. And of course, you look fantastic. Let's get this. Starting off at number 1, we have Karen Bloodhoof. Now, Karen is so good because of his last 2 abilities and his last equipment. We'll start off with the equipment because I think it's very important to understand what this is. Reincarnation, passive. The first time this mercenary dies, return it to life at 40. It starts at 10 and then slowly gets upgraded by 10 every single time you actually upgrade this equipment. But the reason why this is so good is because if Karen Qs an ability and you actually kill him, but he still has reincarnation up, he will still proc this ability. And because of this, Karen is at the point right now where he is just one of the best mercenaries in the game, because if you focus him, it does not really matter because he's going to get Earth Stomp off or Endurance Aura. And speaking of his abilities, let's talk about the 2 ones on the most right, because the one on the left is kind of Endurance Aura 5, gain taunt for 2 turns. Your characters are 4 speed faster this turn. Now, this ability is super good because it's synergistic with like Diablo. It makes you get your spells off or abilities off first, because imagine you're having a sword fight, but you get to swing first. That's what Karen kind of does. And that is insanely powerful, but that's not the only speed manipulation he has. He also has Earth Stomp, which is not only an AoE damage, but it makes the enemy mercenaries 3 speed slower, which can just be game winning on its own. And they both have a cooldown. You don't want to send Karen in on the first round. You want to make sure Karen's on your bench, but after Karen comes out, you just basically keep swapping between these unless you absolutely need to use Ancestral Uppercut, which there will be some times where it's very, very good. Now, what does Karen actually do in most compositions? He comes out as a protector. You fight against green guys, and because you do gain taunt from Endurance Aura, Samaro is not as scary, and you can kind of just protect the rest of your team. And because there is a speed up on this, your abilities get to go off first, like I've already mentioned. Karen is a must-have mercenary. I would highly recommend you get him. He's fantastic. Next on the Lich, you get it because we're talking about, okay, the Lich King is obviously very strong. Now, again, I kind of talked to him in a previous video of mercenaries I'm surprised are this good, and Lich King is on there because of the Frostmourne equipment, which lets his Frostbite slows down the enemy targets adjacent to the one you're targeting as well. Now, why is this so good? What does Frostbite do? Well, Frostbite makes the enemy ability that they use this turn 5 slower. So you're going against Blademaster Samaro and Xyrella, you use Frostbite. Next thing you know, Xyrella is an absolute bot because there's no way she's going to use Blinding Luminance to proc Samaro anymore. Samaro can no longer use his first ability either, which means he gets significantly weaker. And this just works for everyone. A lot of the time, like if you're going against Malfurion and he's using the first ability, his Nature Strike or Cenarian Strike, I forget what it's called, you just Frostbite it, and now he can't just proc Nature ability to be that fast because he's just going to take a long time to proc it every single turn, which means his passive gets worse, and Frostbite is just so freaking strong. It's one of the best openers in the game. It just lets your speed be so much quicker, and generally speaking, a lot of the enemy mercenaries are going to pick their best ability first because they want to do the most that they can in every single turn. Frostbite is fantastic. Now, even if they focus the Lich King, because this is a 5-speed ability, you're almost guaranteed to get it off. So don't even worry about that. He also has Death Coil, which is very utility based. You can either do double damage to a fighter, which is insane. At max rank, it's 36 damage, which is very powerful going through a taunt, or you can heal your own mercenary, which is very good as well, because sometimes your enemy mercenary comp is going to go after a specific mercenary, maybe a caster. You heal them up and you're set. You also have Frost Shield, which at its max rank, I believe goes to 2 speed and 1 cooldown. So after you use Frostbite, you could Frost Shield and potentially freeze them. And he just such a strong speed manipulation minion or mercenary. You may have noticed a trend here. Speed manipulation is very good. Lich King is fantastic. Another great way to round out protectors in your composition. Next on the list is voljin. Now, voljin is arguably the best caster in the game because of what he does for shadow compositions. Now, shadow is pretty good right now, but voljin's kit is just kind of insane in a sense. His first ability is not great. So kind of like Karen, you don't really want to put him out on your starting composition because you generally want to put him in when Curse of Weakness and Saddle Surge are ready to go. So we'll start with Saddle Surge, which is obviously just a ability that does AoE, but it does even more damage if you have another shadow ability. So he pairs very well with like Temzin or Natalie. He could be very, very strong. And then you also have Curse of Weakness, which buffs your shadow abilities. And this buffs itself. This will actually just do 14 on its own. But on top of that, for every other shadow ability you have this turn, it is just amplifying it. Now you may be looking at this and going, 5 and 4 is not fast enough, Rarran. I don't know about voljin, until you realize what his task 7 equipment in, which is, I think I'm going to say this might be the best equipment in the game. I think if they're going to nerf anything, it might have to be this, because Ring of Haste makes your shadow abilities 3 speed faster. So if you have voljin coming off the bench and you still have another shadow character, you are almost guaranteed killing at least 1 mercenary, always guaranteed. Now, getting 2 is pretty easy, and getting 3 is not even impossible either because of what voljin brings to a party. In my opinion, voljin is what I like to call a must-kill mercenary, because the longer he is on the field, the worse it's going to get for you. I would highly recommend, if you're going to go for voljin, to make sure that you either get Temzin, because Temzin just works so well with voljin, or you can go with Natalie. Both are great, but I would just recommend just making this character and just, you know, grinding him up because he's so freaking strong. He's nuts. Next on the list is Vardan Dawn Grasp. Now, Vardan is very unique because I basically want to call them a 1 ability bot because of Flurry. Now, Flurry's damage is fine. You're arguably doing 18 damage a turn. And if you really want to get the equipment for task 2, you can make it deal more damage, but that's not where Vardan is that great. They are better with the Chilling Amulet equipment, which puts your enemy composition in a very awkward situation, because unless they want to get slowed down every single time for 2, which may not seem like a lot, but slowing them down by 2 means that you get to get your abilities first, kind of like we talked about with Karen, but for every single time. And it makes characters like Diablo so much better. It makes just everything. Imagine putting voljin with Vardan, right? Like, they're not going to be able to do anything. Voljin's always going to be able to swing first, and that's what Vardan brings to a team comp. Very easy to fit into every single one. And with the Chilling Amulets for equipment, you deal 8 damage to all enemies if they focus Vardan, which generally speaking is not great because there's probably going to be someone else on the board that they have to focus instead. But if they do, you also get to freeze an enemy minion or mercenary until the end of their next turn, which could be just game winning on its own. If you don't know what freezing does, it basically makes their next ability not do anything. Like, they can't do anything the following turn, which is rather insane. I don't think I really have to talk about how good Vardan really is. Their Cold Snap ability is definitely not bad, and Ice Lance can be really strong if you're going against a slower mercenary. For instance, if you're going to be sped up or they're going to be slowed down because you previously flurried, you could freeze them and stop them from doing their ability, and that could be very, very powerful. But generally speaking, they are just used for flurry, and that's what makes Vardan so freaking strong. Would highly recommend grinding this character up. Now, for the last mercenary carry, it's a little bit up in the air, but I thought I would showcase Diablo because I've already showcased a lot of characters that work with speed manipulation, and if there's one character that likes speed manipulation the most, it's Diablo. Now, the reason that is because Fire Stomp, dealing 6 damage to all enemies is pretty good, but did you know that it repeats for each enemy that hasn't acted yet? Which, if you're going against a lot of casters and they're being slowed by Vardan, or they got Frostbite from the Lich King, or you have Karen, which slowed them down and then sped you up, you're doing a little bit of damage there for sure. And that's what makes Diablo so strong. Now, you could make the case for a lot of different fighters in here. I was willing to put like Blade Master Samaro. I think a lot of people already have him leveled up, but I think he's very strong, especially with Zyrella. I also think that Sylvanas is very strong. I personally haven't leveled her up yet, but she's also very good in these speed manipulation comps as well as a shadow composition. So I think for the last one, it's a little bit more up to you, but I think all of these are perfectly fine with the other mercenaries I have showcased in this video, so I thought I would showcase them. If you found this video helpful, and I hope you did, make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. You look fantastic.